Hello and welcome to Heroes 101, the Nexus Raiders podcast. I'm Commander Chu.
And I am Hyro Splitix, also Nick. We're here to talk about one of my favorite heroes in the game, Valla. Today we're going to be going over playstyle, tips and tricks, when to draft her, talent options for rolling the team, and maybe some specific maps that you might find her to be extra strong. But before we do that, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our producers and the rest of our patrons for making this coaching series possible. You're all the absolute best, and be sure to check your emails because we'll be sending you the full MP3 of this session, as well as a private link to the video. And those producers are Calvin Chu, in the flesh, Bradley Falk, at Eric Talent Jr., myself, Nick Barnhart, and Michael Malia. So thanks again so much. We're out here trying to just help everyone out. No one wants to game alone. So that being said, maybe we're going to just jump right into things. Valla, gotta love her. Like I said, one of my favorite all-around heroes. Brings a lot to the table, and it's really important that she's played correctly to maximize value, and that's, I guess, what we're going to be talking about today. So things to know about Valla, just in a general sense, is obviously ranged auto-attack champion. That comes into really a lot of its own unique kind of mechanics. Maybe you come from different MOBAs where, like for instance, League of Legends comes to mind. Auto attack damage is really the main source of damage. Maybe with like a poke or a nuke. Valla kind of feels a lot like that. She really seems like a true classic ADC from the MOBA genre. And if you really kind of encapsulate those mechanics, orb walking, as it was called in Dota. I guess now it's just called A-stepping or stutter stepping. Making sure that you utilize her innate movement speed buffs and her very strong attack damage. I think you'll find that she can be very mobile, great at kiting, and she can keep a lot of sustained damage, the longer the fights draw out. And she's got a nice kit to allow her to throw some burst damage into the fight as well. So she's really a well-rounded hero. Not a lot of glaring weaknesses. And so that's probably one of the reasons why I like her a lot. So that's just the initial Valla summary.
Yeah, I guess we can start the discussion off with what maps do you think Valla excels at? Like, where should you be picking her? Where should you be drafting her? Based on the different map objectives and how the different maps are played.
Right. So I guess like on the surface, the map that jumps out at you for a map that Valla will really excel is Battlefield of Eternity, because involved in Battlefield of Eternity is obviously you're going to be putting a lot of sustained damage on the Immortal, where a character like KT will get his damage out with a convection and a bomb, and then he's waiting on cooldowns. The entire time a fight's happening, Valla is able to auto attack, and in fact, she's getting stronger with her hatred stacks. So the longer a fight actually draws out, the total damage done is going to favor a character like Valla or a Jim Raynor, because they're not waiting for cooldowns. They're able to actually just continually do damage, and in this case, it's going to be to the Immortal. And you're going to be racing against the other team, or a lot of times teams will be kind of trading back and forth while they position to attack or defend the other Immortal, or defend their own, I should say. So the longer these fights draw out, the more value Valla gets, just being able to just constantly poke and auto attack. So that's a great example. She's got I think she's a little underrated with her wave clear, so you might get a lot of value with Valla on Braxis holdout as well. She can help you clear the enemy Zerg, as well as, like I said, the team's kind of like similar to Battlefield of Eternity. The teams fight for those beacons of Braxis holdout. It's a long, drawn-out process. Sometimes, you can get 10, 15 minutes into a game before the first Zerg wave comes out, when teams are really competitive. And that's what you want if you're Valla. You want those long, drawn-out engagements, and she has the mobility then to follow up. You kind of sit there and you're poking, you're trading. Maybe someone gets lower out of position, and she's got a great kit to maybe vault in and throw out a multi-shot, throw out a hungering arrow, and maybe get a pick. And that's where she shines. So I guess her standout maps then would be Battlefield of Eternity and Braxis Holdout for me.
Yeah, so I'm hearing a lot of Valla's great for putting out some sustained damage, and she's also a pretty mobile hero. How would you say she compares to for example, Greymane, you mentioned Raynor earlier, Tracer, and Zul'jin. So how would you put Valla in that ladder? Where does she fit? Where does she do better than some of those heroes, or where does she lack in some areas that maybe you should try out some of the other heroes?
Yeah, that's great. Greymane, equally awesome auto attack damage. However, you're usually going to try to engage and get up close with Greymane and really just melt someone very fast and then get out, right? With Greymane, you really don't want the fight to just be sitting there while you're waiting for your Gilnean Flask cooldown to hopefully get some poke damage in if it's not quite safe for you to engage. Greymane's obviously a very challenging hero to play correctly, and so Valla a little more forgiving, I think, because we'll get into builds here in a little bit, but a lot of people like to build her in a burst situation where she can burst similar to Greymane, but she does it from range, and she's also got that innate movement speed I mentioned with her Hatred Stacks and Hot Pursuit, so she's really able to fulfill a lot of those roles like Greymane with the burst damage and the sustained damage on objectives, or maybe to the front line if you need to bring a tank down. And what she does that maybe Zul'jin doesn't do, who's also obviously very auto-attack dependent, or even Raynor for that matter, is she just brings that mobility into the fight. Raynor doesn't quote-unquote have mobility. He just kind of pushes people away with his Q. And Zul'jin has no crowd control really at all, other than maybe if he lands an axe, he'll slow you 15%. And if he's really lucky, he'll hit you with 2. And so, those characters... Jin's pretty straightforward and easy to play, but Zul'jin you're going to have to really position well, and if he's allowed to do what he does, he'll put out a lot of damage, but Valla will be able to do that damage, I think, easier from further range and with in more relative safety. And so Valla she really is an all-around awesome hero, and we may get into some of her drawbacks. Obviously, I'm personally biased, as we all know. I guess I might be considered the resident Nexus Raiders Valla main, but she's obviously awesome, and it's pretty I guess generic or whatever you want to say you're a Valla main, and that is shown I think in top tier play. GoSuGamers.net, they keep statistics of professional play for all regions: Korea, North America, Europe, and other than Malfurion, Valla is the second most picked hero in professional play. And I think there's a reason for that. Now, maybe she's not the most contested, so you're going to often see maybe some bans come out. But I think that a lot of professional players like what she brings to the table. I think she's replaced Li Ming from maybe a couple seasons ago. She's replaced that just like constant, safe, steady damage. And she does it in a way that I prefer, because it feels a little more at home to me, because I like that ADC mechanic playstyle. And I guess, like we're talking about how she compares to other ADCs, what she really where she shines is really just mobility, be able to poke from safety, and there's really not a lot of auto attack damage characters in the game right now that can match her in really any of those categories.
Right. So since we are talking about other heroes and like how Valla fits into a lot of situations, really, because she's so flexible, I guess you could say. Why don't we talk about some drafting scenarios and maybe some team compositions? So when would you say Valla should be picked for a specific comp? Because, for example, last week I went over Rhaegar. I said Rhaegar works really well with double warrior comps. Where do you find that Valla really excels in?
Well, at the professional level, and obviously we're not professionals, per se, and we're just out here playing to have a good time. But I think she's utilized most effectively, almost opposite to Rhaegar, in a double support comp. You'll often see her run with Tassadar Oriole or Zarya, if you want to consider it. So Zarya is kind of in that weird bruiser support role. Usually you'll see Valla with a double support. And that is because if you give her even just a slight edge, like maybe it's a Zarya shield, maybe it's a Tassadar shield, maybe it's just knowing that Oriole can heal for essentially free with the energy she gives, Valla can outtrade any hero in the game. Any hero in the game. Nobody can trade with Valla if she's got a Tassadar shield or she's got a dedicated support. She's already forgiving without a support, and then you throw in basically a quote unquote babysitter to follow her around the map, and she can really just be a bully. And so that said, if you're playing well and you're sharp, you can keep yourself alive. So you maybe not like with a hammer. A hammer, you're going to want maybe a double bruiser. You're going to want some peel. You're going to want someone to keep you alive. I think you can get away with a single tank double support and then a Valla. and then you can throw in whatever you want for that fifth slot, be it another ranged or whatever you need. Many comps will have her as the only range damage in the comp, and I don't think that's a disadvantage. I think she does plenty of range damage, and again, they're going to be taking double supports and shields. What they're going to be doing in that situation is extending the fights, right? If you're taking extra sustain, if you're taking extra shielding, that's that character could be a character that's bursting the enemy team. So you're trading off burst. You're no longer trying to blow up the enemy team because now you're trying to keep your Valla alive and let her do what she does and excel in areas where she's really strong.
Right. So I guess you say what I'm hearing is that you want to kind of survive through maybe the enemy's burst and just allow the team fights to extend longer and longer and get even more value from Valla because she can put up so much damage over time.
Yeah, and what that really looks like in real term, like I don't necessarily have like video clips that I can play in this situation, but you just got to imagine a situation where the enemy tank is diving you and they're trying to blow this Valla up, but she's got the shield. Maybe she lands a good bolt. She escapes. What she's doing now is the tank has to choose to either head back to his team, all the while Valla's getting poke damage because she's A-stepping, and while the tank retreats, or the tank's going to commit and stretch their team out. And Valla is underrated in her ability to just whittle away high HP, high armor tanks like Johanna, like ETC, like Muradin, And that the key is, and where I think a lot of teams maybe make a mistake is, the enemy team's tank will engage hard on Valla, and they'll think, well, we need to engage on the enemy team as well. So that kind of spreads the floor. But remember, with a Valla comp and the way you want to play it, if maybe you're playing with a team and you have that Valla, is you really want to let the enemy team stretch themselves, let the Valla really kind of melt down that front line. I know that it's, I don't want to say like bronze, silver, gold, but at lower ELO or just maybe a more casual setting, people will say, don't focus the tank. Why are you focusing the tank? We'll never win a fight. But in truth, if you're Valla and you want to position safely, you're going to be focusing that tank most of the time. Now, so the times where you're not focusing the tank are going to be when you A, see a pick, or B, maybe see, like I said, it's somebody else out of position on their team, or you're able to poke the backline with your W relatively easily anyways. And she does have vault, but you're almost always going to want to keep that vault to escape, not engage. So sometimes it's maybe not as exciting in the middle of like when a team fight's happening and everyone's kind of jockeying for position and it looks like the action's about to start, and maybe you see like a Li Ming in the back line and you're like, man, I'd really like to blow her up, but there's a Johanna between you and that Li Ming, or whoever it is. Don't not be afraid to focus the tank with Valla, and that may frustrate some people on your team. They're saying, why are you focusing the tank? Because what they've done then is they've gone for that Li Ming. They've put themselves out of position when your team has a better ability to bring down the enemy team's tank. And if they would just maybe play safe and let the fights draw out, which is kind of, I guess, the theme of how we like to play Valla, if you just let these fights draw out and not hard engage just because the enemy team's hard engaging, they're diving all in, well, your Valla's going to vault backwards to stay alive. And now you're a Thrall, and you're like, well, I'm going to go dive the enemy team. And then you die, and you go, wow, Valla, you didn't follow up. You were focusing the ETC, whereas as Thrall, you could have just been hanging back, throwing out chain lightnings, maybe throw a wolf to further stretch out their team and let that Valla burn down that ETC, for instance. And then it's a 5v4, you follow up, and I think it's a common misconception to think that fights need to end quickly in the game, especially at the lower levels when the death timers are so short. You really just can make them extend out for so long. Take Infernal Shrines, for instance. Valla really shines on that map as well. I'll throw that into the mix too. Her W with 10 stacks of Hatred and Punishment can insta-clear Skellies, and she's able to clear and remain a damage presence on the shrine when she doesn't have to tap for mana. We'll get into talent picks, I think, here in a little bit, but that's one of the other things that Valla really brings to the table is sustain. Not just damage, but also mana, not having to tap. And that's huge, right? That's huge.
Right. So would you say that people should really remember that she is sustain-based damage? While she can put out burst damage, people should remember to utilize her ability to put out damage over time and just allow team fights to draw out. Don't rush, don't dive, because she works very well in a protect a certain zone or defend a zone comp or fight
Absolutely.
style.
Absolutely. And especially because like I said, your other enemy team, they're going to be looking to engage. They're going to see a Valla. They're going to, it's like a Matador with a red cape. They're like, we got to go for that Valla, that nice red hood. It just triggers them. They're going to charge you. You know it's going to happen. And if your team kind of takes a deep breath and just kind of extends the play and lets the team kind of space out, I think that really favors the Valla team in a lot of those engagements.
Okay, definitely. So let's go right into talents and talents as well as how you should be utilizing her abilities, for example.
Sure, absolutely. So Valla is a character who, according to COTS logs, has some diversity. I think as it plays out in my experience, that diversity is not really there. There's really only 2 ways you're going to build her. Technically 3. Maybe it's going to be like 75% her multi-shot build, maybe like 15% her Q build, and then if you're going up against a Shogal with another, if you're going up against Shogal Azmodan, you might see an auto attack build with a Manticore. So, and we'll break into that kind of tier by tier here shortly, but that's just the overall theme of Valla builds. And so, basically, Hungry Arrow, her Q, skill shot line, it attacks, it hits the first enemy that it meets, and then if there's a hero nearby, or if the enemy is a hero, it'll just stay bouncing on heroes, but you can hit a creep, and then it will search for a hero with the other 2 bounces of the Hungry Arrow. Multi-shot, just a cone of AoE damage. Pretty straightforward. Cooldown's around 12 seconds, I think. And then her E is going to be Vault, kind of her mobility move. One of the things that really makes her shine. Not only is it great mobility, relatively low cooldown, but it buffs your next auto attack to make it do essentially a nuke's damage, right? So like your next auto attack after you E is just like you landed a Q. And a lot of people don't, maybe they forget about that, or they'll E to safety, and they'll forget to throw out a quick auto attack before they run back to Fountain, for instance. Like, throw that out. That's a big damage boost. Utilize that Vault. And then her alt's Strafe, which is a channeled spell. It kind of like shoots everyone around her. I think there's a cap on the targets. It might be 5. And then Rain of Vengeance, her, like, at least 70% of the time, people take Rain of Vengeance. And that's conducive with her usual build, I think, in a way that I'll explain here. So Rain of Vengeance has 2 charges. It's just an AoE in front of you, stun. And what it allows you to do is continue to auto-attack, right? You got those hatred stacks. You're fast. You're mobile. You're weaving in and out of a fight. You're looking for shots. And if you activate Strafe, you're really committed. If a Valla activates Strafe on the enemy team, you can essentially say, okay, everyone focus Valla, because she's not going to be retreating. She doesn't want to waste her ult. Naturally, she's going to want to get aggressive. I like Rain. You can throw out a charge. You don't have to use both charges. They changed that, now a while back now. They made it to where you used to just cast both charges when you activated it. Now you get to save one, so you can be a little more discretionary about, I'm going to throw a Rain out, maybe try to anticipate a mosh pit, or, get into... That's kind of like some high-level thing. You get a feel for that, how to best use your Rain of Vengeance. But those are kind of her basic skills, her skill set, but you can't talk about Valla without then diving into her trait, which is amazing. Each shot gives you a stack of hatred each time you land an auto attack, and that's not just on enemy minions, it's not just on enemy heroes. You can hit enemy forts, you can hit enemy walls, which I cannot tell you how many times I'm trying to keep hatred stacks up, and my team, for whatever reason, is like, let's just blow up this wall, and it's like, whoa, guys, let me do that, please. And, because it's very important that in order to maximize that hatred, I always take on Pursuit for the first of all, so you have 10% movement speed buff all the time. And then also it gives you at least, a huge damage boost on your auto attacks. And then Valla has in her talents that we're about to go over, various talents that increase her effectiveness based on how many stacks of hatred she has. So a lot of the Valla play, throughout the game, you're just kind of like what it's like constantly to play Valla is going to be hatred management, trying to keep your stacks up, but doing it in a safe way. Because I play so much Valla that when I'm playing against a Valla, I can, in the same way that you can anticipate maybe landing a nuke when you see an enemy player going for a regen orb, maybe you're going to throw out a nuke, like, wow, they're going to go for that orb, I'm going to anticipate that and throw out a KT convection, right? So in the same way, you can anticipate a Valla trying to keep her hatred stacks up and use that against her, because it does put her out of position sometimes. And a mistake that a lot of Valla players make is in order to keep their hatred stacks up, they put themselves out of position. So it's another thing to look out for. Now that we've kind of gone over her kit, I think maybe we can dive into some of her talents, and this should go pretty quick because, like I said, she pretty much has like a very strong build that, in certain situations you can pull out a different build, but we're going to basically focus on the one I often run, which is her multi-shot build. So at level 1, her first talent, Monster Hunter, it buffs the Q. It's great on Battlefield of Eternity. It allows her to maybe burn down objectives. You can also use it on Garden of Terror. You can also use it just on Haunted Mines. Any map where you're going to be burning down a boss often. It's pretty awesome. And even if you're going to stick with the regular W build, you can even take Q at level 1 and just continue on with your W build. However, what you forfeit if you do that is, in my opinion, above and beyond the strongest talent at this tier, is Hot Pursuit. And Hot Pursuit, just to kind of give you a rundown, I'll have the tooltip up right here. Yeah, just Max Hatred increases your movement speed and your mana regeneration. So I think it's a 10% movement speed buff off the top of my head. I don't have HOTS pulled up. But and the mana regen, you can feel it. Valla can be a very mana hungry hero, and you have to manage it really well unless you're able to keep those hatred stacks up. And it really allows her to stay in the fight in a way that a lot of ADC or other damage carries really just can't do. Especially after they've got through all their cooldowns. They throw out all their spells, and then maybe they do that one more time, and then they're out of mana. So Valla is able to sit there and constantly, just about as long as it takes her cooldowns to come off cooldown, if she has 10 stacks of hatred, she'll have the mana to cast another set of spells. And that is just so OP, I can't even go into it. Now, some people like to go Caltrops at level 1. It's kind of just like a, it empowers your vault, and it gives you a little more mobility. It lowers the cooldown on vault. The vault uses a lot of mana, first of all, and so I really like to save that vault. It's kind of like there's certain characters where they have a move like Malfurion, for instance. Yeah, you always want to land a root, but if you're just sitting in lane, Moonfire and creeps, and you see you throw out a root, like you can cast 2 regrowths for the mana cost of 1 entangling roots. So even if you land that entangling roots, then sometimes the vault, you want to save that mana and use it for your multi-shot or keep. Essentially, where I'm going with that.
Right. It's like just because you can doesn't mean you should. Right.
And that's not necessarily Valla 101. That's just kind of like mana management in MOBAs, right? So just knowing mouth players out there, I see you guys throwing out roots left and right, and it irks me a little bit because as an ADC, how could be using that mana as a heal? Let me just let you know. Anytime a mouth's out of mana, I'm like, I saw you throw 3 entangling roots out. Like, why are you doing that? So that's just something to think about. At level 1, usually I go Hot Pursuit. HOTS logs here says 61.5% players take Hot Pursuit, and that's by no means, the Bible on Valla, but I think it shows that a lot of people agree with me that Hot Pursuit is the best talent at that tier. Jumping really quick into the level 4 tier, Puncturing Arrow, it just it makes Q stronger, more damage. It kind of just that Q build, you got to do it. The Q build has singular purpose if it's a situation where, I'm trying to think about the best way to describe this. So Q build is great for single target damage and being able to throw out Qs and have to, if they have a team that's going to be diving you a lot and you're going to have a hard time staying in the fight, you don't think you're going to be able to keep your hatred stacks up because Q is not based on hatred stacks. Q does that damage, and then you'll take it 7 repeating arrow. And then it's great for burning down objectives too. You'll synergize with Monster Hunter at level 1, and Q build can do some damage, but to me, I like the AOE for multi-shot. I like a little bit different playstyle, and I'll get into why I think that is the case here in a little bit. In my opinion, the above and beyond best talent at this tier is Punishment. It increases the damage of multi-shot based on how many hatred stacks you have. And, so I've harped on how important it is keeping those hatred stacks up. The difference is felt is tangible. If you just throw out a W on a creep wave and you take maybe half their health, great. But if you have 10 hatred stacks, you just clear that creep wave in 1 multi-shot. So it's really nice. And when you take Arsenal at level 7, it just that much more damage from your multi-shot. You're spamming it. You've actually lowered the cooldown on your multi-shot by taking Arsenal. But before we get on to level 7, the last one is Creed of the Hunter. That's that auto attack build we were talking about. Landing auto attacks increases your attack speed permanently, and when you get to 100, it's like a flat buff, and it's nice. Don't get me wrong, it's nice. But that extra attack speed is really sharp. Oftentimes, I don't take Creed of the Hunter, and I'll try to make up for that if I can at level 20, and we'll see why here in a little while. But jumping into level 7, Arsenal is one of the better moves that Valla has. It lowers the cooldown on multi-shot, which is her primary damage dealing ability, and it just adds that much more damage to multi-shot. It throws out 3 grenades, and for each hero hit, you reduce the cooldown of multi-shot. And in those fights, multi-shot is so much. Like a 10-stack hatred multi-shot with Arsenal grenade proc on a damage carry is at least half her health with 1 W, and then you lower the cooldown down to maybe 8 seconds, and like nobody can stay in a fight with Valla for very long. Death Dealer is sometimes the talent I'll take other than Arsenal. That just empowers your Vault basic attack. The basic attack that follows your Vault empowers it that much more, and it really starts to feel like a nuke. Obviously, if you're taking Caltrops at level 1, you're going to take Death Dealer, and you're really going to focus maybe on that auto attack build. And another thing to note is kind of like the Kerrigan Q talent that resets the cooldown. I don't know if that's a talent or if it's built into her kit, but if the minion dies after you auto attack with Vault, the cooldown is removed and you can vault again. It's kind of nice. So it can lead to maybe some cool plays: vault in, snag a kill; vault in, snag a kill. Obviously, that would be a cool thing to create. But that's kind of situational versus the all-around effectiveness of Arsenal can't be denied.
All right, and you did go over the heroics earlier, right?
We did go over the heroics already.
Right. I was just say we are at the halfway point of this episode. So if you're watching live on Twitch, we're going to continue on in just a moment. But for those of you watching on YouTube, if you want access to the full hour session, just head over to patreon.com/Nexus Raiders. All of our patrons, regardless of pledge tier, get access to these Heroes 101 series sessions. So be sure to become a patron if you haven't done so already. It's just a great way to give back to the community, and just so it'll allow us to continue providing value, doing what we do, running Nexus Raiders and that kind of stuff. So everyone live, stay tuned. We're going to continue on. Everyone who's not watching live, become a patron. And for those of you who are patrons who are about to continue watching the full episode, thank you so much. You guys are awesome.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
We appreciate it, guys. Can't thank you enough. And we're about to get into the nitty-gritty here. So you're going to want to catch the end of this Valla 101.